our listeners know that we're in Memphis. We left the window open on purpose because it feels like because we're at TravelCon. So you get this feel of the city, and you hear dump trucks and sirens,
trolleys. Hopefully.
I feel this lucky to be here because last night, wherever we were, an hour or two later, there's a shooting. So it feels like authentic Memphis, and we're alive and well to be here on this morning to interview you guys and to hear your story. But we know you as the world's longest honeymoon, but it's like the dream that we would all. It's like everyone's dream. You once in a while, there's somebody that actually does what the ultimate dream is, and that's you guys. But it's almost hard to believe. It's hard to like fathom that this all happened. So can you at least tell us a story? How old were you when you first got married? What was your intention when you started to travel? And then how did it just keep going?
So we got married. You were 28 and I was 33. And then when we were trying to plan where to go on our honeymoon and writing down countries and destinations on a legal pad, and then turn the page and more destinations, and it just kept going and going.
And where did you get married? Where are you both from?
We met in playing volleyball in Hoboken, New Jersey. That was our last known address 10 years ago, was in Hoboken, just outside New York City. We got married, outdoor winter wedding in Vermont.
Cool.
I had to plow the aisle, like spiked hot chocolate to get all the guests through it. And
by the way, were you guys skiers or why?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like our go-to. Every
Love
other
to
weekend,
ski.
we'd drive up there and go skiing.
Where in Vermont? In Killington?
Killington.
You guessed it.
Exactly.
Ooh, yeah.
So
It's the only place I've been in Vermont is Killington.
it's a fun time.
Yeah.
It's the best. So Anne actually grew up in Southern California. I grew up in a mountain town in Pennsylvania, but we didn't want to choose either family's home base, so we made everybody trek it up to Vermont.
Go to Vermont.
All the Californians had to buy snow boots and jackets and wear socks.
What month was it, by the way?
It was early March, so you don't know we were going to get. Like, a blizzard actually canceled my parents' flight for the family dinner, and they did not make it. They had to do, like, an emergency landing in a different state and then take a bus over, just as my mother worried and predicted. She's like, what if there's a blizzard and I can't get... Like, Mama, you're being ridiculous. Okay, that exact thing did happen. She was right. I hate to admit that.
But it snowed on our wedding, and we had fire
day.
pits and guitars, and we gave everybody spiked hot chocolate.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. But we knew that when we were... registering for our wedding, actually, we didn't ask for blenders and china. We asked for parts of this 1-year honeymoon. It was originally going to be a 1-year honeymoon. So all of our family and friends, gave us, 1 week in Bangkok or, different tours and different destinations.
Things that they wanted to do in their life or wanted to share with us. And it was a big part of our support system, was actually kind of everyone getting on board together to send us off in the world really meant something. Because a lot of people were like, they could have been, you're crazy. What are you doing? You're going to quit a perfectly good job and leave your home? And what about your careers? And it's dangerous out there. And, there could be a lot of fear. But instead, our community kind of rallied around us and sent us out into the world.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. Let's go back to the career thing early on. What were you guys doing? So you were in your late 20s. You were early 30s. You'd been working, I guess, for a while. What were you both doing? What were you doing?
I was a magazine editor, so I always wanted to be a writer. So this sort of came naturally, but it was still like someone pays you every other Friday. Like, you're just gonna. When that last check came, we're like, all right, so hopefully we can cobble the rest of this together.
What were you writing about prior? What was your main topic?
Interior design. So I worked for Elle Decor and House Beautiful, and we were nesting hard. Like, we had like a cute apartment, we had a really good little life for ourselves in New York, and then we blew it up.
And then you?
I ran a social network from my time at Carnegie Mellon. We started it there in '98, and then I ran it all the way until 2010 when I finally...
a little company called Facebook you started. Now,
Pre-Facebook.
Yeah,
Facebook. It was called Kiwi Bucks.
So you had so did that help? Did you have a little bit of a nest egg in order to go travel for a little while?
For that 1 year.
Yeah, so you kind of had a year's worth of...
Exactly.
Which was very helpful for us because we're like, okay, we had sort of the number $100 a day for the two of us. And then you look at your bank account, you look how long you want to go. And we're like, okay,
so you didn't end up with $50 million here.
No.
It's okay.
Not
which I think
trust
is
fund
important,
babies.
by the way.
No.
Because, when people hear these highly aspirational stories, you immediately think, well, how is that possible? Oh, maybe they were in tech in Silicon Valley, and maybe when they were 27, they ended up with like $13 million, and she ended up with 22 million, and that's how they're doing it. That didn't happen.
It
No.
did not happen.
You guys,
no endowment.
You had some savings, about $100 a day for a year, which is not crazy.
Yeah,
but
35,000.
Yeah.
The cost of a mid-sized sedan.
Okay.
And we had a little bit more than that between 401ks, but that was what we said. Okay, we can go on this trip and come home and go back to our jobs in New York and get back on the ladder.
So that was the thought, is that we're going to take a hiatus for a year,
Yep.
and we're going to come back.
Yeah.
And where did you start out, and where was this? Well, first let's just paint the picture. Where were like the early places you went after Killington?
After Killington, we took a one-way ticket to Brazil. And the feeling of getting on that plane, just going into the total unknown.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have our first hotel room booked. For the night we started, we're like, it just became set the stage for winging it for life. And then it does all work out. But yeah, and then we could have started with maybe more of a softball like Paris, but like, let's go into the Amazon jungle for day one and get on a dugout canoe with a guide and go fishing for piranha for dinner and hang a hammock in a tree and hope snakes
Wait, do
don't
people
come down.
eat piranhas?
Oh
yeah.
We're vegan now, but piranhas were, I remember, pretty good. A little salt
Really?
over the grill.
But
Yeah.
it was
Really?
crazy. We were in this dugout canoe, and we
I thought
met.
they eat you. I thought they eat us.
We had
know.
very terrifying faces. And
Which we
teeth,
thought
yeah.
because we were fishing for these things and just dropping little bits of chicken on a line and a hand line and just yanking them into the boat because you need like 10 of them for dinner.
Yeah.
So we're catching all these piranhas, and then we wake up in the morning right next to where we're catching them.
And once you catch them, they're flopping around the boat. They're still alive. And I'm like, oh, hang
And
on
they're
to your
angry.
toes. Yeah.
But then in the morning, he's like, oh, cool. Like, let's just go shower. And we're like, where's the bathhouse? And he's just like, no, here's a bar of soap. We'll just jump in the river. And we're like, that's right where we were fishing for catching piranhas like left and right. So it was kind of a wild
By the way,
experience.
why do they not come bite you?
They only supposedly eat like decaying things. So like if another animal dies, they'll go to town on it. Or if you throw like a dead chicken in
piece
there,
of chicken.
they'll go for it. But they're not, I don't think they hunt living
Okay.
things,
Okay. And you're like, hopefully they don't get confused.
Yeah, because
Right.
we've all seen movies. But the Brazil thing was a really formative experience. And we didn't even realize it at the time, like how many skills we would learn in that jungle and just kind of getting thrown into it and like jumping into travel or jumping into an experience like that is it just stuck with us, like how important it was and formative for the travelers we've become,
And then where was next as we build this story? What was kind of the next big memorable place?
And we did, months going around South America, and we tried to actually take as few planes as possible. So we overlanded like all the way from Brazil to the bottom of Patagonia up to Peru, and then we flew to Africa, and same thing. We took little
Where was your
minibuses
first place
and-
in Africa?
South Africa, which is a good place to start, kind of
Yeah.
get your feet wet. But then after that, we were, just doing local transport, like riding with Maasai warriors on the bus, and it takes any amount of time. You think you're like, oh, this is 100 miles, and how long should that take? 3 hours? No, 4 days later, you get to your destination, but you've had so many adventures along the way, met such interesting people. And
a good tip, a good takeaway for anybody who is thinking about, retiring and doing a year-long trip or or living abroad. When we did the South America thing, that was about 4 months we were in South America, and we purposefully flew back through the States. We also had a wedding and my brother's graduation to attend, but we came back to the States and dumped half the clothes we realized we didn't need, switched from a tablet to a second laptop because we both were just, we needed our own laptops, both partly to run Honey Trek.
realized we never closed that credit card, and they were coming
Exactly.
after our
So it's good
apartment.
to do like almost like a little test run, whether it's a month or 3 months, but something more than just a 1 week trip because it's a different life.
Had you already started when did you start Honey Trek though? Was it right away or did
A few months before, because I think that's also when people do something grand like that. They want to start a blog. Well, start it early because you have to kind of build your audience and get people excited. And people want to know the process. Like getting out the door is the hardest part of travel.
yeah.
So we started to share that from the packing to the going to the travel doctor and getting weird shots and just kind of get people excited. And so, started maybe 4 months before.
So when did Honey Trek? So it was basically South America. You did a little respite back in the U.S. You go to South Africa, do Africa. When did you? Was there any sort of moment where it started to say, this is just going to keep, what was the time when you realized it's going to keep going? What did it have to do with your following? Was the following of Honey Track just slow and gradual? Or was there any one thing that like exploded the growth of that?
There were some articles that started to circulate pretty early on, which is funny, like at a year and a half. Like, is this the world's longest honeymoon? Now we've been going for 10, so I think we can confidently say yes, it is. But there was some buzz going early. And also we realized we were just doing this for us. We were not trying to make this a business, but we realized we did have complementary skills between like your marketing, social media, my writing. He's an excellent photographer. We're like, maybe this is a thing. Maybe we could make this awesome, sort of a dream into a job and make it a lifestyle.
And it was resonating with people. They were seeing what we did and being inspired to go on their own trips. And we had a few friends actually, like kind of near that 1 year mark, that were like, you've inspired me. I'm quitting my job. And one friend visited us in Thailand. We used to do these parties whenever the day, month, and year would meet up. So on 12/12/12, the party was in Thailand. So we did a 12-day. We rented a villa and had some friends over. And one friend got there and we're like, wow, you have a lot of stuff. And she's like, oh, I'm not going home. Like, I'm doing my own year trip.
So you inspired her to do that.
Yeah.
But she needed the push.
You're the first person to talk about different parties around the year. Tell me about a 12/12/12 party in Thailand. What do you guys do for a week?
Well,
I've never been to Asia, so I can't even conceive what that's like. Is that like Leonardo DiCaprio on a beach? Where is it like?
We did go to that beach.
Yeah.
But yeah, we spent 9 months in Asia as well. But he's a gatherer of people, which is interesting because we've gone out into the world. We were very social, and we try and find silly reasons to bring people together, like when the day, the month, of the year are the same. So
333, 444.
Yeah.
So I feel so terrible. We did not do 2. We could have done this on February 22nd, 2022. Totally missed opportunity.
Okay, so what do you guys do? How many people come in, and do you get a place like? Are you on the beach or a villa, or is it somewhere?
It was a villa on the beach, a nice like infinity pool. I think we had about 8 people fly in for it, which was pretty cool because they were all flying from the U.S., either SF or New York. I don't think we had anybody come from Europe. And but yeah, we just put it out to our friends and our close friend circle, not on Honey Trek. We just our friends from school and from New York, and said, hey, we're throwing a party in Thailand. You guys want to come? And they did, and it was just 12 days of a little bit of debauchery, a little bit of education.
Yeah.
We did like 3 different stops around Thailand.
Some of them had been to Asia before, so it was kind of like a little push because people, I want to go to someplace like Asia, but I need an excuse. I need a little bit of an anchor, someone to hold my hand.
Yeah.
So I think it really opened up a lot of their worlds too.
And Asia is, and you need to add this to the top of your bucket list, and anybody listening to this episode who has not been yet, it is travel and a destination unlike anything you could imagine. Everybody can understand what Europe is like.
Sure.
Most people
it's
have
not
been.
that different, yeah.
And it has its culture, and we love Europe. And there's so many unique destinations there. But there's just something about Asia, the warmth of the people, the history. I mean, the history there. If you think European places, have
history.
Have history.
Yes.
It's 10 times as old, and just the food and the affordability, which I know is important to everybody, and it was that combination of falling in love with these people and like seeing a culture that we'd never seen before.
And every country being very different.
And every country being so different, and it being so affordable that we were like, wow, we're living here for 2 people for like $25-$30 a day instead of the 100 we planned.
So it really was less than you had planned
so much
for.
less. So we were like, okay, maybe we can stay here a little longer and make our trip a year and a half. And then we'd gotten good at like travel hacking, Asia being so affordable, that was kind of what triggered in our mind.
Which that actually was a part of the strategy and I recommend this to anybody who's thinking about retiring, is kind of like look at your bucket list and like order it by level of difficulty. And we went to mostly developing countries.
For example, level of difficulty, to me, it sounds like your first stop, Brazil, that seems hard to do. Europe
Trekking
seems
in
pretty
Nepal.
easy,
Yep.
but Asia seems hard to me. Is that?
Well, it's like kind of like Europe will always be Europe. It's like these wonderful cities will be preserved. Everything's very just kind of, you can walk in. You're not gonna. There's a lot of infrastructure and services so that you don't mess up. But it's okay. Like do the more challenging things while you're younger, because you might need as you get older the nicer bed, and you might not want to do the really long uncomfortable bus ride. But so many adventures happen in going that route, and so just challenge yourself to like do. We kind of put Europe and North America last. One, because we thought we're going to blow our budget if we start those places,
Right.
and also maybe we won't do the 10-day trek. And if we don't do it now, when will we do it? So I encourage people to go after, challenge themselves earlier than later, because you can always do the easy
So
stuff.
to this day, do you still not have a home base?
Correct.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, yeah. When we tell people, oh, we're nomads, they say, oh, cool. You travel a lot, but where's home base? Like, where
People
do you
still
hang
want
your
the
hat?
answer. We're like, no, really, we have no home base.
Yeah, we haven't had an apartment key or a house key since December 2011.
What kind of conditions? Like, let's say, if on a scale of 1 to 10, like a 10 is the Saint Regis in Paris, if there is one, and then a 1 is like a shack in Bangladesh. Like, where would you say your average conditions are on that scale?
I
If
think
I'm
you
choosing?
should. Right. Good. Point.
Oh yeah, and you don't necessarily always. Okay, yeah. If you're choosing,
You take a shack in Bangladesh first.
Oh,
I
for
would
sure.
maybe. I wouldn't choose a St. Regis either. But it's the idea of always mixing it up. It's if you're always 5-star everything, you don't appreciate it anymore, right?
Yeah.
And if you,
If you're always
no matter what your
backpacking
budget
and-
is, like I think everyone should do a homestay. I think it's the only way to truly know a culture is to sit around a table in a local home.
whoa. What's a homestay?
To people who rent a room, who do cultural exchanges that way, where you're.
Oh, this would be, and I learned this from Pauline Fromer on. What are the websites like Share a Couch and?
I mean, there's couch surfing is like the
Couch
mainstay.
surfing.
There is homestay.com. And sometimes it's just asking around too. I mean, we went to a very remote village in Cambodia and we wanted to stay the night and there really weren't hotels. We just kind of started to ask around. Oh, they host travelers sometime. Next thing you know, we're like around the fire and we're like doing like patty cake games with little girls and we're cooking together and just having these really authentic experiences come out of that. So you need to sometimes, particularly around fancy resorts, of which we do enjoy, you can be in this walled garden that's not reality sometimes.
So you
need
will
to hang
have
with locals
it'll
to know.
go like a 1 out of 10 to like. Do you ever do luxury stuff?
Oh,
or
we
is-
do.
So you
but
do
we
like-
might
I
hitchhike to a
can't-
5-star resort. So that's
See,
kind of the dichotomy of our travels.
I wouldn't picture that for you guys. So you
Do
will
we not
do.
look classy?
Well, I just because you've been able to stretch a dollar so well. Like, give me an example. Nicest place you stayed at. Nicest and worst. Give me nicest and worst. Like, even Mike was like, "Oh man, I know this is profit. Sorry about this." Ann."
And also with Honey Trek, we work in tourism, so we tell stories around destinations. So even, we just did a partnership with a hotel called the Brando. It's in French Polynesia. It's one of the.
It's Marlon Brando's atoll, but it was his series.
the
his list.
Brando, as
The
in Marlon Brando.
As in Marlon Brando.
in French Polynesia.
In French
Yes.
Polynesia, it's like $3,000 a night.
Okay.
So we spent.
Obama wrote a chunk of his memoir there. Beyonce and Jay-Z stay there. Leonardo DiCaprio. It's a fancy pants place. But what was so cool about that, all of that money that comes from charging so much a night goes back to an incredible research institute that is working on solutions for climate change and through ocean studies. So we actually did both, where before we went and had our butler and our infinity pool, we actually volunteered for 2 days with like the seabird research team. We were out there doing like invasive studies, species walks, and learning about like what is that. I love them as an example because it kind of shows tourism as a force for good, where it's like, you can have this fabulous place, but where is that money going? And if I'm going to put my money towards something, is it doing something more than just, senseless luxury? It can do positive things.
And for us, when we're going to use our voice and tell our audience about something, we want it to be something that's bettering the environment or bettering the communities we're visiting. And everybody has that choice, right? Like, we're not going to stay at a place just because it's luxury. But if it's got a story, if it's inspiring something, if it's doing right by the environment, or these,
You guys haven't used plastic bottles, just an example. So you really kind of walk the walk. You are environmentalists.
That's why we gave up eating meat. We went vegan for the environment.
Yeah.
That was 6 years ago. And then, we gave up single-use water bottles. It was basically at the end of our Brazil trip, and which was the first country on this journey. And we saw all the plastic in the rivers, in the forests, in the city streets, and we were like, we do not want to continue to contribute to this. And we had this little thing called a SteriPen with us, but we thought we were just going to use
a UV light.
It's a UV
sterilizer.
light. So you just put it in your Nalgene, spin it around for 60 seconds, and it purifies any
Oh,
water.
I see those things every once in a while, like feats of engineering on LinkedIn or somewhere. Those are that really works.
Yeah,
it's called a UV pen.
It's
We drank in the
SteriPen,
Amazon
it's
River,
called.
and that is not. That's the one where people were doing the dishes and the piranhas, and we were all
If
showered
you
in
go
it.
on
We
our
also
YouTube
drank that.
video, our YouTube
I've probably
channel,
seen that UV pen. What's it called?
it's called Steri, SteriPen. And that is another thing, like when people say, what is your must-pack thing? And we try and be advocates. We don't work for them at all. We're not ambassadors for SteriPen, but that's the most important thing in our luggage, because as travelers, everyone says, oh, at home I don't do bottled water, but on the road I don't want to get sick.
In
You
a
know,
developing
obviously
country,
I'm
you
going to
can't
do it.
drink the
Yeah,
water.
of course. And we have literally done that. Every single drink of water through 63 countries, we haven't consumed a single bottle of water.
By the way,
So-
do you do that in the U.S. still? Like if you're at a hotel in the U.S.,
The tap water is pretty much good anywhere in the U.S.
okay,
But if it's questionable or we're not
just
sure.
throw a UV SteriPen in it.
Exactly.
What? Tell me about your diet. Like, tell me about what you eat, and do you? Well, you guys are vegan now.
Yeah.
But what is
Which
your?
is getting easier and easier.
Yeah. What is your diet, and is it just super diverse, and you try to consume wherever you go? You want the local food, but because you kind of have a palate of healthy food. I mean, you guys are in great shape. It's like, are you working out? Like, give me your food/health regime.
I mean, we love to eat as like local street food wherever we can, and being vegan, that gets a little trickier. But at the same time, there's an app I'll pass along to anybody. It's called Happy Cow, and basically it's like any vegan or vegetarian friendly options near you, and
Okay.
it helps you navigate that whole landscape. And frankly, sometimes places like New York City, there's so many dining options, it can be overwhelming. Sometimes veganism actually like helps you narrow down, like, okay, now I have 5 good ones to choose from. Like I'm
As
not
opposed to 87.
87. So I think it can be an asset, and yeah, it makes us feel good. And
And you did vegan for the environment, not necessarily health wise. And has it changed? How has it been health wise? I've never done vegan.
When we first went, we decided to do a 1-month test.
Mm-hmm.
And, because we're all taught as kids that you need protein, and everyone's number one question, where do you guys get your protein if you're not eating animals? And we're like, well, animals are all vegetarian. Most animals are vegetarian. And they're getting their protein from vegetables and grass,
point, yeah.
just like we can. So, we went for environmental reasons, 100%, because we saw the destruction of rainforests and just land being consumed to raise cattle.
basically, we're not perfect, right? We're still going to take planes. I'd much rather give up a hamburger than a flight, to someplace awesome.
Yeah.
So it was the single biggest move we could make to lower our carbon footprint. So that just seemed easy enough to be like, we'll make it work.
And then health-wise, everything's been better. Like we feel a lot
cholesterol
healthier.
definitely went down.
Cholesterol went down. We have a lot of energy. We don't get that kind of afternoon slump after you eat a big.
So it really has health wise, it's not like it's been a big trade off. I mean, yes, you don't eat filet anymore, but you probably don't even want it anymore.
And we also I like to cook, so we do a lot of Airbnbs, and we have a little camper, and that has a kitchen, so you can making your own meals is.
Have you ever been
Make sure you like what
shut
you're
out because you're late on figuring out where to go? Like, are you always like a couple days ahead? You're like, oh, I know I'm going to be in somewhere, so at least
For lodging,
yeah, lodging. Like,
We have yet to sleep on a park bench. It always works out, and we also are terrible about planning far in advance because we also
guys
I wouldn't
So
say
we're
we're
good
terrible.
at it.
terrible. We're
On purpose, we rarely.
we feel like you never know what opportunities might arise, so we keep things open. Like maybe you get to a town, you're like, what, there's this awesome festival happening, or you meet somebody lovely and you get an invite. I feel like
Like
rather
the
than,
French
I can't
yeah.
because I've got these reservations and I got to stick to it. Like
And one of
it works out leaving it loose.
And everyone thinks, oh, well, I'm going to get there and there's going to be no rooms. There is always a room, right? We did the Fringe Festival is this big
What
event.
city is this?
This
Where
is
is
in
it?
Edinburgh, Scotland.
Okay.
It's the largest.
makes total sense. A
Yeah.
French festival in Scotland.
Fringe,
okay.
Fringe.
Oh,
Fringe.
Fringe.
Which is
I'm sorry,
which
okay.
is basically
Fringe.
one of the biggest performing arts festivals. So it's
The biggest
it's
in the
theater,
world.
it's music, it's dance,
Okay.
it's comedy.
5,000 shows in a 1-week period.
Wow.
And we had heard about this and we just decided to kind of go on a whim. So we took the train over there and we got out at the little info center and we went and said, hey, like, where can we find a room? She's like, this is Fringe. You're not going to find a room.
She laughed in our face.
Yeah.
You got good
and
luck.
we just called 2 places. First place we called, it's like
Right
yep,
on the Royal Mile.
We have a room for you right on the Royal Mile. It was like $30 a
Now,
night.
do
It
you
was-
leverage a little bit of who you guys are? Like, they don't even know.
They don't even
Depends.
know.
Sometimes
You know,
it's harder to,
This is Mike from Honey Track.
Do you know?
Do you know who
No,
I am?
That's so obnoxious. No, we do not.
Okay.
And sometimes it's because we mix up our types of lodging. Like maybe one night we'll be staying in doing a homestay. One night we're staying in a 5-star resort. One night we're glamping. We mix it up, and we kind of usually have some tent poles of like, is this really an experience that's worth booking?
What do you mean by have some tent poles? What do you mean by that?
So if in a country there's certain experiences you do want to have, we'll build around that, but then we'll fill in the gaps just for
you're talking about like
serendipity.
kind of your main. Okay, you're not talking physical tent poles here.
No.
You're saying like the big things you want to make sure
if that's
you
important to you,
experience.
like make sure that happens, but you don't need to plan every single night, meal, what you're doing, because it's more. I think that's the fun of travel is you don't know what you're gonna get. It should be an adventure. Like get lost. Like
the locals will give you tips. Other travelers at the hotel or the hostel, they'll give you tips, and then you can pivot. So you're not. It's
not uncommon at all to find a place the day you're there.
Oh, for sure. That was largely our strategy for the longest time because you can something with your own eyes a lot better than whatever images online. So sometimes we'll even like compare 3 hotels back to back and see how it feels and find the room that has the strongest Wi-Fi signal because no one will tell you that. You have to go with your own phone and find that out.
Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, well, I mean, Wi-Fi is the lifeblood of this then because it's opened the world for you guys. It's really. I mean, if there's a singular change in the world that we've between COVID and Wi-Fi, and then Starlink is coming, which is going to be a massive thing. In fact, Starlink just announced something with one of the airlines where they're going to start.
I did see that.
It's going to actually it's going to work, and so you'll have 5G in like a river in Montana. Right,
yeah.
which is amazing.
It is amazing.
It's going to be even more game-changing than what we live at today.
And with COVID, like so many people are becoming nomads, either by choice or their company just said everybody's working from home now. So there is a lot more people wondering how to do it,
Tell me about the undulation. Let's talk about money because I keep thinking like, again, our listeners like, how the hell do they pay for all this? And clearly you guys have a big audience and you've got a couple of different books and I want to talk about them in a minute. You're well established as the world's longest honeymoon. So you've got a great brand. Honey Trek has how many regulars at this point? How many?
We have about 350,000 followers across social, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
And tell me about the economics. I mean, you don't have to give me dollars and cents particularly, but has it just been a little more every year? Has it had some good years, bad years? How do you feel about it economically?
Yeah, I mean, to work in any creative industry is going to have its highs and lows.
Yeah.
It can be very feast and famine. But at the same time, I think because we always thought we were like, how long can we make this last for? We shifted our whole mentality around money very early on because we're like, the more we save, the longer we can stay out and play. So we made it sort of prioritize like, always spend on experience. If this is something that's truly unique and this is the place to do it, you do it no matter how much it costs. Or is it just another, it's just an average hotel or an average meal? Like spend where it counts and, go as budget as you can on the rest because it's for the long game of how long you can do this because, those experiences are what mattered.
And we got really good at, and it was fun for us to do travel hacking. I don't know if you've heard this term, travel hacking, or mileage
Tell our
hacking.
audience about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do, and a lot through different credit cards, and it's a whole community of people that play the airline mileage game or chase, Sapphire points.
Because how much money we saved on flights alone with travel?
Yeah, we've saved well over $50,000 in flights. We've taken the flight here was our 192nd flight that we've taken for free on miles.
192nd free flight. Okay.
Yeah. So we do a lot of that, and that's a great way. It's a little bit of effort. It's not, but if it's a hobby for us. And then on lodging, we actually just were in Hollywood, and we spent 10 days in the center of Hollywood, and we spent nothing on lodging
because of points.
No, that was house sitting. So you've heard this term, house sitting?
Of course, yeah. What website do you do that through?
Trusted House Sitters is one that we commonly use. They're the biggest, most, have the most options internationally.
Trusted House Sitters.
Trusted House Sitters. But then if you want to be in America, well, there's, House Sitters America. And
House Sitters Canada, House
there's
Sitters
always,
UK.
Yeah. So that's actually, because it can get pretty competitive to get that villa in San Miguel de Allende, at the prime time where the festivals are happening. Or so it's good to kind of focus local sometimes because there's just less competition on the domestic sites.
Yeah.
But house sitting has been a real thread through the last like 6-7 years of our travels.
House sitting. Give me an example because I've never explored it. Let's say I go away. I live in Atlanta.
Yep.
And
You've got a dog.
Yeah, 2 dogs.
Okay.
And it is a big deal to board them. It's very expensive.
It's
And
a
it's not a
cost.
happy thing
It's
for
a
the
stressful
dogs, yeah.
thing for the dogs.
Yeah.
You know, they come home and they've been beaten up in the little doggy daycare. So yeah, you would go on house sitting as a homeowner,
Yep.
and you would pay the $150 or whatever, and then you would put your profile up there and say, "Here's my 3 trips this year. Or here's a trip I'm going on
and
next
that's for the
month."
year, because what do people pay dog sitters? You're probably going to pay $150 in 2 days.
Yeah.
So pay
Yeah, it
for
is.
one
It's like,
membership
it is
for the
like,
year.
I think $50 a day to
Yeah.
to 70. I think with 2 dogs, yeah, it's like it's not. It's very. It's
On a
a
10-day
lot.
trip, there you go, $1,000 for your 2 dogs.
Sure.
And you would put your house on there, and then you would interview us. We would go on and say, "Oh, we're looking to come to Atlanta, maybe for a travel show, or we just want to relax there and get some writing done." And we would apply to your house, and you would look and say, "Oh, wow, Honey Track, look at our blog. These guys look trustworthy," and you'd see our
Yeah.
references.
But nothing to do with like
No,
who
no,
we are
no,
or
no,
anything. I mean,
exactly.
anybody can do this. And what we love the most about it is it's a way to get local, and so you kind of assume someone else's life.
Yeah.
I'm a farmer in Portugal this month, or maybe now I'm an artist living in Costa Rica with my 2 infinity.
But you
pools.
okay? So then I trade out. Like I don't have to go do doggy daycare.
Yep.
And I don't pay you to come to my house, but you basically pet sit.
Exactly.
And you get the house in trade.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anything else
And all your
beyond
bills are
just
taken care of.
pet sit? Is there any other thing, or is it almost all about pets?
We've taken care of some fabulous gardens.
Yeah? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
If somebody's
people-
gonna be gone for like a month.
if someone's gonna be on for a year, they usually have nothing, and they decide I'd like a warm body. So we like almost took this. Actually, it was a vineyard in Santorini, Greece, and basically they were like, "Well, we're gone for 4 months, so we just want to like have some sort of warm body looking out."
Like
for
they
the
have a
place."
staff there, but they just wanted us to
Yeah.
come and watch
What
their...
was your longest spot? Was that it? Santorini?
We did a 3-month house sit in Roatan, Honduras, which is an island off of
Roatan.
Roatan.
Okay.
And that one was a crazy house sit.
Why? What was it? What was happening?
Well, that was the most challenging and rewarding house sit. One, because it had a private beach. The view of the ocean was incredible.
Honduras.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, we'd have like macaws flying from the trees and iguanas and like coconuts and mangoes are falling. And it's just like super idyllic. But it was also, she didn't really let on that it was like this cute cabana in a resort that was like falling down around it. So it was, we basically had to reclaim that as, okay, we're gonna make this work. Paradise will not beat us up. We will find it. And we ultimately learned that we could kayak to the bar and there's bioluminescence, and we made friends with the local scuba guy. So we got scuba diving lessons, and we had enough time there to get local, make friends, have access to more opportunities versus this sort of 1-week vacation rental. And that you are a vacationer versus we assumed like a community, right? She introduced us to all her local friends. We were integrated much more easily.
I love this. So this is what I'm going to ask you. So this is, I know that you talk about vacation versus vacation versus travel integration, which is like, and what's a number, by the way? This is, the world is starting to experience more and more longer trips because of COVID and because of living other areas. What do you think a magic number is where you start to, one, the logistics of having enough time to meet people. Two, the other side of that, well, I'm only going to be here, so I'm leaving soon anyway. Like, what is a good number where you start to feel like you live there?
I think around a month for me.
We try and have a minimum of 3 weeks at a house sit. I feel like just as you're starting to get to know it, you're out the door, and that's not a good feeling. I mean, you kind of find your groove at around like 2-3 weeks. But then we usually don't do them longer than 3 months because you just never know what else is out there.
Yeah, and it's like it's also a mindset when you go into this place. Like we can be in a destination for a week, and if we show, an interest in the local people and spark up conversations and show that we actually care about them, like you can have a pretty deep experience. It's not necessarily the length of time, but almost like what kind of mindset you go into it with. Like if you really care about these people and their cuisine, or you want to learn from them, things open up pretty quickly.
Or you joining where you can. Like when we did a house sit in Seattle, we're like, let's join the local volleyball league. We're only here for 5 weeks, so that's 4 games. Like we can.
Yeah.
And then we built a community pretty quickly.
What about how many countries?
63 on this honeymoon.
And 7 continents.
Yeah.
7 continents, 63 countries. How many cities? Or do you
God.
not even keep track of
Around
that?
like cities / places we've spent more than a night, I think, is around 1,200.
1,200. Okay.
Yeah, we move.
Favorite. Give me a top. Give me number 3, 2, and 1. Go up.
fast. New Zealand, South Island of New Zealand.
Nepal is a fascinating destination.
And the Arctic Circle.
Oh, you're gonna go number 1 on Arctic Circle?
Maybe not number 1,
Well,
but that
that's
was
so
an
big.
amazing
What do you-
road trip. We did a 3-month road trip.
You're saying the Canadian. Arctic
Yeah.
Circle,
Well, just British Columbia, Alaska. We took our camper van up there,
So-
and it was a combination of bears, glaciers, northern
Yeah.
lights.
Why? So I've heard now a couple times here at TravelCon that the Arctic and the and Antarctica are kind of like the best. Most interesting place you might ever go. Was it enjoyable or just interesting or both?
Antarctica was so extreme where you're like, it's sunny, and now I'm being like pelted with hail in my eye, and you're like,
Penguins
I was
running all
hoping we
over.
would see a few penguins. We must have seen 10,000 penguins. And we then saw, a leopard seal leap through the air and nab a penguin. I'm like, I am in a wildlife special. Like, this is really happening around me.
Antarctica's a
Yeah.
must.
Nat Geo.
Yeah.
And Nepal.
Because it's got...
That seems just brutal to me. Like Nepal just feels like it's just mountains and snow and like.
Oh, but then
like
it's
they're-
vibrant cities too, so it's both.
Oh, it
It's
is.
8 of the 10 highest mountains are in the small country, so it's just epic for that.
And you
But
don't need to
then-
be a mountaineer to love Nepal.
Okay.
I mean, like the cities there, the food, it's just, I don't know, it's one of my favorite cultures in the world. I would go back there even if I didn't hike or couldn't hike or, it's
So
not.
you don't have to be a mountain person.
No,
for
no.
sure.
And what's also neat, we did the Annapurna Base Camp trek, and it's interesting convergence
In
of
Nepal? Is that
of like
Annapurna?
extreme wilderness to then culture, because there's villages that have been living far, far from roads, like built into the mountains for forever. So you kind of are like meeting people as you go, and actually you don't need to schlep a tent or anything. You stay at these little tea houses and have dal bhat for dinner, and it was kind of a very cool cultural trek that was really challenging.
Most underrated, fascinating place.
Ecuador.
Mm-hmm.
Ecuador, possibly our favorite country in South America, which we didn't visit the first time through, but made a point because everyone assumes Ecuador is just the Galapagos and that it's crazy expensive. But mainland Ecuador was, I think, probably one of the most underrated
It's like
countries.
4 worlds because, one, the Galapagos is absolutely amazing. But then there's Volcano Avenue, so you've got these glaciated smoking peaks that like you can go hike and just marvel at. And then they also are part of, they share some of the Amazon. It's actually, we saw way more wildlife in the Yasuni section of the Amazon than we ever did in Brazil. And then it's very like indigenous culture is still very alive and well. So it's a pretty dynamic place. And then Quito is one of the first like UNESCO cities that ever got that,
I think it's the first.
Quito. I'm sorry, that's in
That's
Ecuador.
the capital of Ecuador.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's
Yeah.
talk about your books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me what is your most recent right now?
It's called Comfortably Wild, the best glamping destinations in North America. Because we discovered very early on, we were running around South America in that first year, and we're like, we love the outdoors, but it's our honeymoon. Like, I'm gonna be pitching a tent, but I also like don't want to be in some big box hotel. And this kind of convergence of having those adventures and being able to like actually savor them at the end of the day. Your bed is fluffy and made. You're having a nice glass of wine and kind of just sort of absorbing the best of the outdoors without some of the schlep and the hard work associated with that, and incredible guides.
Yeah,
and
glamping is,
access
I mean,
and
I didn't
luxury.
even know about glamping until probably 10 years ago. I never even heard of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it that new or has it been around?
I mean, if you want to get into it in terms of the history of glamping is actually fascinating. That word is new, right? But the concept from everything from just people being nomadic, actually bringing their home with them as they go. If you're talking about like Mongolians in the Gurt, or you're talking about Native Americans, or the Ottoman Empire bringing their finest rugs and silk tents and setting up cities, and
And then
bringing
the
the nice stuff
African
with them.
safaris like kind of took it to the next level, and
Oh, right.
That made it
the
more
hunting
mainstream
safaris,
as a-
but they would bring their china and
Where do we go glamping now? Where do you like to go glamping? Is it to me, it's Montana, like, or Wyoming. Is it? But that's you're the world is your glamping.
Yeah.
Well, for
it's everywhere.
glamping to us is about. It was less about. Well, it's always interesting structures. So literally, you could be staying in a treehouse or a geodesic dome or an Airstream trailer, but it's less about
Whoa, what was the dome?
like a geodesic dome.
Geodesic dome.
Like
what is
Epcot
that?
Center, but
Oh,
like
okay,
one of
yeah.
those big domes.
Oh, cool.
But it's the idea is like, what experience do you want to have? So we organized the book by that. So the Cultivate chapter, all farm stays. Wild West,
cool.
ranches. Rejuvenate, more like yoga retreats.
In motion, where you glamp somewhere and then either ride a covered wagon or kayak to the next glamping camp, and you do 3 or 4 different
the journey is
glamping
the
destinations
adventure.
in the woods. Yeah.
And so then also that it was about like the really interesting people who take the leap to build something in the middle of nowhere and hope people show up, but they want to share a piece of their world with others. So that book was really a lot of the human side of it too, of creating something special and sharing it with
So
guests.
Comfortably Wild that's your latest, and is that getting some momentum?
Yeah. I mean, during the pandemic,
We put it out
everybody.
right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
perfect.
Yeah.
Right? So people wanted to reconnect with nature. They didn't want to necessarily share the buffet spoon or the elevator with other people. So, yeah, it definitely saw a big increase. And, yeah, we just love connecting people with nature and, back to that whole sustainability angle.
That there are places that like work with the landscape, not try and control it.
Do you guys write and publish something every day on at least social, or like a couple times every single week?
Yeah, Instagram stories is probably, like the little short 15-second videos. So Instagram is probably our most frequent.
But then I think hopefully people understand that you are traveling, and that's why it cracks me up whenever you like write an email to somebody with like more of a corporate job and they have an away message. I'm traveling now. I'm like, well, I'm always traveling and I'm still checking email. Okay. But
I know.
yeah, that's not a good
Yeah,
excuse. But sometimes you go dark for a while because you are in a remote village hiking up a mountain. So you can't let it run your life. You still need to be out there experiencing.
What is your Instagram? I'm looking at it right now.
Everything is Honey Trek. So
Yeah,
everything's funny. Okay.
HONEYTREK.
like a long walk around.
Yeah,
the world.
like a long trek around the world.
We almost wouldn't believe that this was real, but I'm telling our audience that this is real. Like, it looks like one of these things. Like, this isn't real. Like, this is real? No way.
It is all
And
real
I see
life.
waterfalls, and I see Comfortably Wild. I see wedding photos back before you took the leap of traveling for an entire year. I see the most incredible place in
Tetiaroa.
Oh, that's the
Tetiaroa?
The
Brando.
Brando.
Where is this?
That's the Brando in French Polynesia.
Holy cow.
Yeah, the color of that
no
water.
wonder. Oh my. No wonder it's 3 Gs a night. Do you guys ever, it sounds, part of the difference here is that I have always thought of travel as, to your point, it's kind of, you go and you come back. You guys have made this a lifestyle. And do you ever, I guess if it was just you two, I would ask the question, do you guys ever get sick of each other? But it's not that. It's you guys always having a community around you.
I mean, that's the thing. People are like, just because we travel too much doesn't mean we're not out there every day. Travel is really about the people you meet. And because we are social, I mean, we'll just, you make friends as you go. And that's the joy
scale
of it.
1 to 10, you're social, 10 most social, 1 most non. Where are you guys?
I'd say we're in the 6 to 8 range, right? Sometimes we're a little less social, but yeah, we're 6 to 9. I don't know.
Yeah, we're pretty social people. But at the same time, sometimes you got to get work done too. We just, we'll hunker down together and
you become a team out there, right? Like you're your team. You're deciding where you're going to stay, where you're going to eat, how you're going to get between 2 destinations, where you want to go next, what activities you're going to do or what work you're going to do. So it's, you kind of become a unit out there, kind of looking out for each other.
For couples, what's your advice for couples traveling?
I think it's, to get out there as a team and the idea that like you're building something together. So both be a part of the planning process. So it's not just the other one's leading the other one around. Like find out what each of you are jazzed about and make sure that you're kind of doing them in equal measure and like let that person take charge and be like, then you're stoked on it, you plan it, you make it happen. And, because you did this one, well then come with me for this one. And usually even if you're like someone loves soccer and someone loves the opera, like it should be a mix anyway. So just find each other's interests and nurture them. And
for all the couples listening, one of the books, the first book that we wrote for National Geographic was called Ultimate Journeys for Two.
Yeah.
And in that one, we dive deep into couples travel, how to make it sustainable, little tricks, all of our like
A little
flight
romantic
hacks.
tip for everyone. We also feature for every chapter, we had some really inspiring other couples give their one favorite destination in the world. And these people who like are full on travelers and their best tip for traveling as a couple. Because everyone's got different styles. You have to figure out what works for you.
That's Ultimate Journeys for two.
Yep.
Yes.
yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about kids? I mean, are you thinking about that? Am I asking too personal of a question?
That our mom
Our
put-
mothers called you beforehand. And
Yeah.
said, put them on the spot.
When are they having children? And are you going to
Where
keep track?
are my grandbabies?
But I will, again, as I've talked this through, it's gone from, it feels like this kind of hard to even wrap your arms around it, to kind of understanding you've made it your life, as opposed to, it's not a trip, it's a journey. It's a difference. And I suspect now that if you were to have kids, well, you answer. You're going to move home to Killington?
Right.
Or what are you going to do?
I think even with just say the start of the trip, we're like, okay, 1 year we have to be back because we have to like continue up the corporate ladder. Or by the time I'm 35, we have to have kids. That's what you're supposed to do. You're 35. That's your last chance. And we're like, who wrote these rules? Like, who's to say you have to follow any of these paradigms? Like, we have a life that we enjoy, like, and we're breaking out of the mold. And and so people always want to be like, when are you coming back? When are you having children? When's it going to end? You're like,
When are you getting protein?
yeah.
Well, also, but you could have kids and just keep going. I mean, right?
Which a lot of
Totally
people do.
could.
I mean,
We
probably,
know wonderful family travelers. It is entirely possible. It just is not what we're going for.
Yeah, and for anybody listening that does have kids, and we cannot recommend it highly enough to take your kids out there, to take them a year off of school, and when that child or two children, we have friends who have taken their kids out, usually somewhere in that like 6 years old to 12 years old range, before they've got too many friends where they don't want to leave. And when those kids come back to school and they've maybe been homeschooled on the road, the development in the kids and the parents in just that 1 year is so inspiring for them. The stories they'll be able to tell, the people that they'll become.
Look up World School. World schooling, if you don't know it already, as a movement. Just think about, like, we're kids, you go to classroom and you're learning about Egypt and the pyramids. What if you could do that at the pyramids, to give things context in life? I mean, that's like me, like almost flunking out of Spanish in 9th grade, and then I convinced my mom to let me study abroad in Costa Rica, and I was like, I love this language. This is like,
Oh, by the way, do you
opens the
speak
whole
any
world.
languages?
Spanish is really the main one. We always try and learn a little bit of local language
Yeah.
because it just makes such a difference to have
How
at least
proficient is your Spanish? Fully?
semi-fluent. I mean, fluent's a very strong word, but I
Yeah.
can chit-chat all day long and have the best time.
Yeah, okay.
And I can just get dangerous,
Yeah. Okay. What have you maybe learned the hard way on the road? Like maybe some mistakes that have really opened your eyes to do it better.
I'll give one travel rule while you think about a mistake. And my travel rule would be to not listen to, even though we're all in the media of some sorts, but not listen to the news type media, which wants to make you fear the other, right? They want to make you fear Russians or the Chinese or Muslims or whatever is not you, right? And it's the same in the flip side. The media, not necessarily on purpose, but fear, it sells, right? It sells advertising and it keeps you home so that you can watch the news the next day as opposed to be out there meeting these people. So it's to kind of disregard or at least go to these places that you're scared of, and you'll see, we have friends who did a 4-year road trip around the world, and we asked them what their favorite country was, and it was Iran. And that's a country that we've all been told is, warmongering and just scary, and you're two, white British people, like you're going to get hurt there or they're going to kidnap you for ransom. And it was their favorite country in the whole world.
With incredible hospitality. Yeah.
Incredible hospitality. So it's just to get out there with a
By
love.
the way, go back to how do you again, because I think back travel now, it's kind of bringing up all the travel that I've done, and it really is the education is so, it's so real. Like it stays with you forever.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if I remember any one particular thing in any one particular class in college, but I remember so many highlights going to, Europe and southern Spain, and going to northern Africa, and going to Scandinavia, and going to Russia, and going to Moscow and Leningrad at the time. It's so well remembered as humans. So I love the idea of this world schooling. It is like anywhere you go is an education.
Kind of to build on that is that was a real motivator for us when we were, planning this honeymoon. We're like, well, the memories we have now, you'll have for the rest of your life. The idea of cramming that into your final years when you could have been like have that memory and that friendship and that life lesson that you carry on for decades more. That is like invaluable right there.
Yeah,
So
people think it's a risk to quit your job and go spend part of your nest egg traveling for a year at any time, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s. Like, now is the best time to go on an extended trip, because when you go to these places, and when you're traveling for a year and you don't have things booked, it's a totally different experience. Every destination is different than if you flew in for 10 days. Even if you do the same activities, the way you're treating people, the way you're flowing through the country is different on a long trip, and it's very hard to explain, but it's a much deeper engagement than just like, I saw the Leaning Tower of Pisa and I checked these things off my bucket list. So you need to do it as early as you can in your life, like Ann said, and not become this more worldly person the end.
This is what I wanted I didn't quite get to, is that the integration. I remember going to Turku, Finland when I was, let's say, 12, 13. I remember it was exchange, and we all stayed at family houses. And I remember visually to this day the breakfast I had in Turku, Finland. How different it was, how like bright the orange juice was, and how they had salami and meat for breakfast, it felt like dinner in America. And I just remember it so well. How would you advise people to get into the culture? You'd mentioned the home sharing. Is that the best way to do it? The house sitting, or what did you call it?
There's both. There's homestays where you just like stay with a local family overnight and share a meal and live as they do, which has led to some incredible experiences. Just from
that's right. You meet them before they leave.
Oh, well, there's two different things. There's homestays where that experience is that you are living in their home with them.
Oh, okay.
And then house sitting is more, they give you the keys to their world. They walk away, you take it over.
Where do you find people for homestay? Is that
anything from homestay.com, which is like a search engine for that, or couch surfing, but also just sometimes asking around.
And even Airbnb.
Airbnb, that's a very good
point. We
point.
will choose, if we have a choice on Airbnb, even if it's the same price to have a private house versus a room in somebody else's house. If we want time to ourselves, we'll do the private one, but we will pay the same amount to have a room in a shared home because it gives you access to that local. You might have dinner with them.
The best concierge you could ever imagine. It's like someone who generally wants to share their home and their neighborhood.
Like, you want barbecue? Let's go to Fat. You're gonna go to Fat Matt's.
Exactly.
And it's not the concierge at the front desk who's given the same canned answer to everybody and they've lost a passion. These are people who generally want to share.
Tell me real quick. We didn't barely talked about the U.S. Before we go, give me you have your water mug. Your Honey Check water mug has a picture of the United States.
Yep.
It says 2017, 18, 19, and then you've got all these. Give me your quick overview of your U.S. travels. And when was that? I guess.
Well, we bought this little one to write the glamping book, Comfortably Wild. But how are we going to get to all these far-flung places? And we bought this 1985 camper. His name is Buddy, and he has been very good to us. And we have traveled all over North America. And we were into such exotic places for so long that North America, frankly, did not seem that exciting to us. We've been absolutely astounded by the volume of amazing and beautiful places and interesting places that are on this continent. We roamed around North America for almost 4 years. But that's the thing about a camper is we're I'm not beholden to this thing. I can just park it and go hop a flight. So
it's
we'll
been in
leave
Memphis
it for.
since October.
Ironically, we're having a reunion with our camper this week. He's been abandoned.
Oh, Buddy's
for
coming
a long
home.
time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Welcome, Buddy.
But it's good to have different travel styles, right? A lot of people who, let's say, get an RV. They're like, okay, I'm an RVer now. I'm in this thing 12 months a year. But for us, any one type of travel, whether it's the one, backpacking scale or the 10, luxury hotel or just glamping or just RVs, to us, that gets boring. So when you've got a lot of different travel styles in your quiver, you can mix it up based on how you guys are feeling. And that's, I think, how we've been able to do this for so long. is that we're constantly doing different types of travel, which keeps it fresh and keeps the people
Yeah,
interesting.
we just learned to sail a boat recently, and we're like, oh, that's a good skill. We should work on that. And we found this girl through this, a Facebook group, and she just needed an extra set of hands. And we said, hey, we're not very good at sailing, but we're quick to learn, and we're down to help. And she was amazing. And we, sailed through this atoll and got a whole. Not only was it free lodging and an epic way to travel, it was a real new skill. Mm-hmm. So maybe sailing's the next chapter. I don't know.
An unscary world. I learned that from you. I would call, if I redid this in your parlance, I'd call it what the happiest travelers know. And my first book, Retire Sooner Than You Think, just travel sooner.
Yeah.
Travel sooner. Guys, Mike and Ann, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Founders of Honey Trek, and full of maybe inspiration, not only just inspiration, but some tactical things and an education around why this is possible. And it doesn't have to be what you guys do, but just the possibility of being able to push the envelope from our traditional 4 days away to somewhere in between that and, a decade. I think we can land somewhere in between with what you've told us today. So God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having
It's
us.
been fun.